The Arizona Cardinals are a team that a lot of people are heavily overlooking heading into this upcoming 2021 NFL season. And I understand why a lot of people don't have a lot of confidence in Arizona this year. It's probably either A, you don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury, and two, you believe that Arizona is or will be the worst team this year in the NFC West. And I can understand if you have those reservations. When you look at Cliff Kingsbury, obviously his job probably is on the line. All right, we know that. But I'm higher on Cliff Kingsbury than I think about 95% of the people who are going to be watching this video, because Cliff Kingsbury is not a bad coach in my opinion. For what you want to look for in a young head coach when it comes to taking over a team is what you see in Cliff Kingsbury. For a newly hired head coach who takes over a franchise that doesn't have a lot of talent and hasn't been all that good over the last couple of years, you're looking for this team to be able to improve every single year. And that's what Arizona has done ever since they hired Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach. This team started off the first year, they weren't really all that great. Last year, they went 8-8. They finished third in the NFC West, and they came extremely close to making it to the playoffs. Okay, so the growth has been there for Cliff Kingsbury, which is why I don't understand why so many people are down on Cliff Kingsbury. Like, this team has progressed really well under Cliff. This team didn't regress last year. They got better than what they were in 2019. And this was a borderline playoff team last year. And this showed because they came really close to getting in. So for Cliff Kingsbury, in his case, yes, his job is probably on the line this year, and he does have to produce because the expectations for Cliff Kingsbury this year has to be to get Arizona into the playoffs, because your first year, all right, second year, you improved to 8-8. This year is now time to put it all together, and it's time to finally make it in to the big dance per se. Now, the second reservation that people are probably going to have is that, well, JT, Arizona is the worst team in their division. Now, the NFC West is the toughest division in the NFL. I can't remember the last time we've had a division that had four teams that all could be playoff teams. If you put Arizona in a weaker division like the AFC South, not only do they win that division, but they probably win at least 12, 13 games. So I think too many people around this time of the off season put too much focus on who's the best team and who's the worst team in their respective divisions. And by doing that, you overlook how talented of a roster said team has. Too many people are focusing on Arizona being the worst team or where they rank in this division, and they miss out on trying to actually figure out how good this roster actually is. If you look at Arizona's roster, this is a top 15 roster. Their offensive line is going to be really solid this year. The offensive line played pretty good last year. Now, okay, the offensive line should even be even better this year than what it was last year. Then you got Kyler Murray, who was in the MVP discussion for the middle of the season until he ended up running out once we got to like week 13, week 14. But Kyler Murray was in the discussion for the MVP award for a good portion of the year. Now, last year, he completed 67.2% of his passes, threw for 3,971 pass yards, had 26 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And on top of that, he contributed on the ground as well. And you got to remember, Kyler Murray kind of got a little bit off track at a portion of last year due to him battling injuries. He was playing with a couple of injuries to close out the year. So with Kyler Murray, if he stays fully healthy, I definitely expect him to not only be in that MVP discussion, but he probably will end up having the best season that he has had so far in his young career. Now, halfback is going to be a concern, really, not when it comes to the talent there, but when it comes to who's going to be starting. Now, talent, okay, you don't have the best running back room You have James Conner, who I think is pretty good as a Steelers fan. A lot of people think he's the most overrated running back in the NFL, but when he's able to stay healthy, he's on the field, I think he's pretty good. You got Chase Edmonds, you got Benjamin, so it's going to be interesting to monitor who ends up being the starting halfback come week 1 as we progress throughout the rest of the offseason, heading to training camp and the preseason. Now, the defense is really what excites me the most about Arizona. You got Chandler Jones, you got J.J. Watt. That may be the best pass rushing duo or one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. J.J. Watt was the best defensive player on the Houston Texans last season. Everybody looks at the stats and everybody looks at the numbers, but he was pretty much getting double teamed and triple teamed because he was their only legitimate threat that they had when it came to their pass rush and when it came to having a good player on their defense overall. Now you got Chandler Jones, who missed all of last year. So he's going to be coming back, and he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL on the defense side of football. So this is going to be a really good pass rush. Arizona is really good up front. Look at their linebackers. You got rookie Xavier Collins, who I feel was the second best linebacker coming out of this past year's draft behind Jamin Davis, who plays for Washington. Xavier Collins can do everything. He's a smart football player who has good instincts. He has great size, great athleticism. He also is really good against the run. He also can get after the quarterback, and he also can cover. Like, this guy's a Swiss Army knife. There's nothing that Xavier Collins can't do. And you look at Isaiah Simmons, which Arizona, one of the biggest knocks on them is that, well, JT, they didn't know how to utilize Isaiah Simmons. First of all, you have a rookie who had to go through an offseason program, which he pretty much only had 1 month to really prepare. And on top of that, you had a coaching staff that really only had 1 month to figure out how to utilize Isaiah Simmons. And remember, when Isaiah Simmons was coming out of Clemson, this was a guy who played several different positions on Clemson's defense. He was good at those positions, but he wasn't great. And coming out of college, when you spend so much time with your snap count split, that kind of halts your development because you never really stay put at one position where you can really just learn and really develop at that position because you're just playing everywhere on the field. This guy's playing safety, corner, linebacker, edge. He was playing 4 different positions where he had like over 100 snaps at each. So when you have your playing time split out like that, it kind of slows down your development because, yeah, you may get slightly better at those positions, but you never really get great at either one of those positions because you don't get a lot of time there because your attention and your focus is being split everywhere else when you get moved so much. So Clemson kind of didn't do Isaiah Simmons a favor with how they would utilize him. Like, yeah, he was all in these different positions and that looks nice, but when it comes to the NFL, most teams are going to have you either play 1 or 2 positions, not playing 4 like how he was in college for Clemson. So for Isaiah Simmons, he was going into the NFL. He started out at, like they moved him to linebacker. He kind of struggled there. Then they moved him to safety. In the second half of the year, he really came on, had a really good game in that second matchup against Seattle, which probably was his best game of the season. So for Arizona, you have to understand something. Not only did Isaiah Simmons have to learn a position that he didn't really have a lot of time to learn, but on top of that, you had a coaching staff that was trying to figure out the best way to utilize Isaiah Simmons, and they didn't really have a lot of time because we didn't really have a normal offseason last year. So I expected Isaiah Simmons to struggle, and I expected the Cardinals coaching staff to struggle with trying to find ways to get Isaiah Simmons involved defensively to put him in the best positions to succeed because it was going to take a while. It was going to take a couple of weeks, and I remember coming on here and saying that I expected Isaiah Simmons to struggle for the first couple of weeks due to the fact that Arizona probably was going to have a hard time figuring out how to utilize him during the first stretch of the year. Second part of the season came around and Arizona was pretty good with Isaiah Simmons at safety or however they're utilizing him. So when you look at Isaiah Simmons, I don't know if they're going to play him at safety, if they're going to play him at linebacker. They're probably going to play him at both. They're probably going to do different things with him in different packages. But I think we're definitely going to see Isaiah Simmons have a bigger role this year compared to what he had last year. Like last year, you was just trying to figure out where to put him at to pretty much salvage and make sure that he can make some plays with you. This year, You're going to have a full offseason program. You're going to have a full training camp. You're going to have a full preseason. And on top of that, he has a year under his belt of experience. So he's going to be a lot more prepared. The game's probably going to slow down for him this year. So Isaiah Simmons is definitely going to have a bigger role in Arizona's defense. He's probably going to be splitting time both at safety and at linebacker as well. So I expect him to have a really big year for Arizona. I think he could end up being a Pro Bowler. Now, on top of that, your cornerback position, you lost Patrick Peterson, who has played pretty much his whole entire NFL career with Arizona. Now he's with the Minnesota Vikings. So you bring in Malcolm Butler, who's pretty much going to be the guy who replaces him. Now, Malcolm Butler, even though he's a little bit up there in age, he's still pretty solid. You know, he's not great. He's not what he was in his prime days, but he is pretty good. You also got Byron Murphy, who was really good last year for Arizona. You got Robert Alford. You still got safety Budda Baker, who has quickly became one of the best at his position. So for Arizona's defense, this is a really good defense. This is one of the better defenses in the NFL. This, in my opinion, is a really underrated defense, if you want to be honest. I mean, this is a defense that has talent at every level on the defensive line. They can get after the quarterback. You got linebackers Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. Like I said, Isaiah Simmons, he's probably going to be doing a lot of things this year on that defense for Arizona. He's going to have a big role. You got a very good group of corners. Not great, but good. And you got Budda Baker at safety. So Arizona is a team that definitely should be a team that not only competes for a playoff spot, but I think they could get in. I think that this is a team that definitely could end up being a lot better than what a lot of people may think. And I understand they play in the NFC West. I don't want to give a NFC West prediction because that's not what this video is about. But this definitely is a team that has wild card, talent all written around it. Okay. Now they definitely could finish above that expectation, probably clinch a first round bye or whatnot. Well, not a first round bye because you'll probably have to end up being a 1 seed. But I definitely think that this team is a wild card caliber team that should be able to make it into the wild card round. This is a team that could be around 11, 12 wins, but obviously that may not happen because of how tough this division is. But I think reasonably, we could see Arizona between 9, 10 wins this year. I think the floor for Arizona probably could be 7 wins. The ceiling for Arizona probably could be 11 or 12. I think a medium range would probably be 9 or 10. So you guys let me know how good you guys feel Arizona will be this season. I think this is definitely a team that a lot of people are sleeping on heading into the upcoming NFL season.